Just keep it.
Welcome to FaZe Fantasy Live with your host, Lonnie Z.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's your boy, Lonnie Z, and this is FaZe Fantasy Live. And with me, once again, is my boy, Jake HANSEN. We are going to be going over all of Week 3's games up until Monday night, and we will be reviewing the Monday night game a little bit later. Those games are actually starting right now. Hey, Jake, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good, Lonnie. How you doing today?
I'm good, brother. I'm real good. You know, crazy weekend. Once again, the NFL is just blowing us away with some crazy stuff. That Dolphins game was just insane. Were they playing like a high school team, or who were they playing? Because that wasn't no NFL team, right?
Right. I thought it was the Hurricanes playing, to be honest. I thought Michael Irvin was out there, man.
Because that was crazy. And you know, the week, it just fantasy was crazy. They broke fantasy yesterday. So unless you had one or two of those Dolphins, you weren't winning nothing in fantasy football yesterday. And every now and then, that's what happens on daily fantasy. You know, you get those kind of games. And the Bills defense, kind of the same thing, over 30 points. But we're going to get into all of that. First game out of the slate is the Colts and the Ravens. Kind of a shocker here. I didn't see this coming. I thought that the Ravens would get this one. They're at home. They should have won the game. They end up losing the game. That wasn't good at all. What was your take on the game?
I think it was another thought Baltimore's offense was going to do something different, just like we've been talking about every week. We keep waiting, and I think there's a lot of games like that this week that we thought, you know, we're just waiting for them to look different, you know. And I think Lamar, he had a little struggle without maybe Odell and Gus Edwards got hurt, and Lamar pretty much just took it over himself. He tried, 100 yards rushing and all that, but I just think they don't know their identity yet either. And the Colts, they just, without Anthony Richardson, Minshew just did what he had to do to keep the Colts in the game. I know they had 3-4 field goals, but Minshew didn't really go too crazy. He got 13 fantasy points, but he did enough. And Zach Moss went off 25 fantasy points, and with the 122 rushing yards. So the Colts just stayed in the game, and boom, they won. That's pretty much how that game was. It was nothing crazy. It was nothing exciting, but that's what it was. Michael Pittman Jr., 16 fantasy points. Josh Downs, he's been getting a lot of targets also, 12 targets for 57 receiving yards, 13 fantasy points. And Lamar got 32 fantasy points. That was big. Whoever picked him. And then Melvin Gordon, he actually had the most fantasy points for running backs before Gus Edwards went out. And Zay Flowers had 13 fantasy points. And Mark Andrews did not have a great game, 7 fantasy points.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to touch on. Lamar's lack of passing. He's only had 202 yards. But he did start running again, and we talked about it. We said that, if he starts running again, there's more value there. He had doubled his rushing attempts in each week. So the first week, 6, second week, 12. This week, he had 14 rushing attempts and for 101 yards. So it looks like they were really writing some rushing plays in and kind of starting the season off slow. I think this is what we're going to see a little bit more going forward. But you hit everything on the head, bro. I'm with you 100%. And just to close this game out, Mark Andrews, if you drafted Mark Andrews in the first 2 rounds, you're probably a little worried right now. I'm worried. I drafted him in one of my leagues in the first 2 rounds, and I'm a little worried about Mark Andrews. So I'm not going to say it's time to panic, but if I'd be willing to trade Andrews for like a Laporta right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. I definitely, if someone would bite on that hook, I'd be doing that. And the other little gem that comes out of this game, a couple of them, Zach Moss looks like he might be the real deal, a fantasy RB1. Mm-hmm. And then Michael Pittman Jr., his targets are going crazy. So he had another 11 targets. He had 11, 12, and 11, I think, in the last 3 games. Mm-hmm. With that kind of volume, if he stays healthy, definitely could be a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 once he starts scoring touchdowns for sure, because he's looking pretty good. He's looking like the Michael Pittman of a couple seasons ago where he was really having a good year. Next game on the slate is the Titans Browns. Now that game turned out kind of like we expected. We both picked Browns in that game. 27-3. The Browns kind of had their way. The Titans looked pretty bad. Tannehill looked bad. He only had 104 yards passing. Derrick Henry, 11 carries for 20 yards. I think we're starting to see that this is who Derrick is. He's not going to be 11 for 20 every game, but he's not the same Derrick Henry that people were drafting in the second or third round this year. Not at all. D-Hop, 3 receptions, 48 yards. So I don't know. There's not much on that side. And then on the other side, Deshaun Watson, 289 yards passing, 27-33. He's starting to get a little, feel a little more comfortable. 2 touchdowns, no INT, so that's good. He rushed 4 times for only 16 yards, so he didn't run a lot. Kareem Hunt got in the game, 5 carries, 13 yards, kind of get his feet wet. And if you thought Jerome Ford is the answer, I don't know. I don't know yet if he's the RB1. I don't. Rushing wise, 10 carries for 18 yards. That's a 1.8 yard per carry average. That's not very good at all. But he got 2 touchdowns. He got 1 at the goal line, and then he got another in the passing game. That's good to know that they're using him in the passing game. So he's still very fantasy relevant. But he only had 2 receptions for 33 yards. So what was your take?
I'm glad to see Deshaun do what he did yesterday. I'm glad to see Cleveland come back around from the Pittsburgh game losing Chubb. I thought it was going to be a bad couple of weeks after last week's injury. Tennessee's defense been really stout on the run. They held him this game too, Ford and Strong and Hunt, and they barely got 50 yards out of all 3 running backs, So Tennessee's defense for the run game is still stout. I mean, whoever plays against them, I would still kind of be hesitant on playing your running back against them because they've been solid the last 3 games, But Ford, he snuck it in and he got 19 points. And Deshaun Watson, he had a okay game, 21 fantasy points. And Amari Cooper went off, 27 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
And Elijah Moore, he's getting a lot of targets, man. He's going to break. He's going to keep going. I mean, this guy's been getting a lot of targets. He had 9 receptions, 49 yards, 12 fantasy points. So they're going to Elijah Moore.
Nice.
And that's a big guy. I know that Lonnie you talked about and that you like a lot. Tannehill, 4 fantasy points. Come on, Tannehill. You had 2 bad games. You had one good. You had 1 bad game, a good game, and an awful game. Come on. I mean, something's got to go. And then Hopkins had 7 fantasy points. Tennessee didn't have nothing to be happy with, honestly. And then so I think about it, and I mean, do you think maybe they'll start running Spears more, like just to see maybe that will help?
Yeah.
Help Henry. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
Henry,
the old
help
Thunder
Henry.
and Lightning days, back in the day.
Yeah.
Just like, maybe
Yeah.
run Spears,
I think so.
10 carries and run maybe Henry 7 carries. Just maybe just too many carries is just wearing them down because, yeah, that wasn't Derrick Henry is not playing Derrick Henry ball right now.
He's getting up there in age, man. Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. I think it wouldn't hurt them to do a little more committee and see what they got. So, yeah, but all in all, I think Tennessee, Vrabel always figures out a way to get his team in playoff contention. So I'm sure that's going to happen at some point this year, but they're not looking too good. But that defense against the run is stout for sure. Next game, Atlanta and Detroit. We thought this would be a good game. We thought it would be a little higher scoring. I didn't see only 6 points coming out of Atlanta and only 20 out of Detroit. Some of the takeaways from this game was, Jared Goff still being Jared Goff. But he only had a touchdown and an interception, 243 yards. So it's a little down for him. Jahmyr Gibbs, we wanted to see what this guy would do. He got the lion's share. He got 17 carries, only 80 yards, no touchdowns. So I didn't get a chance to see the whole game. I don't know who they used at the goal line, but if they used him, he didn't get in. Bijan on the other side only had 10 carries for 33 yards, no touchdowns. They shut Bijan down. So it was supposed to be the top 2 rookie running backs. And, and they are the top two, but they didn't look great. It looks like Gibbs got the better of this one, but he got almost twice as many carries than, Bijan did. And Ritter, 201 yards. He didn't look too good. They just couldn't figure out a way to score. Pitts had 5 receptions on 9 targets. 9 targets to Kyle Pitts. That's pretty good. That's what you want to start seeing from Kyle Pitts. They had Jonnu Smith too, who had 8 targets. So they were really working their tight ends. And Drake London, he only had 6 targets. I don't get that. Bijan had 6 targets. Algier had 3. Mac Hollins had 4. So they're not throwing to their receivers. They're throwing to their 2 tight ends now. 17 targets goes between the 2 tight ends, and they get 10 receptions for 78 yards. I don't know. Little disappointing if you are a Falcon fan. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he did his thing, 102 yards, 9 receptions on 12 targets. But the thing here is Sam Laporta is quickly emerging as a possible tight end 1, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. And it was a nice 45-yarder. It was nice. What was your take on that game?
Yeah, I think that was one of the top 5 games that were projected over 40-something points,
Yeah.
And it surprised me, The Falcons have to stay consistent. You see, last week they scored. They came back and they beat Green Bay. They scored a lot of points. Drake London had a bunch of yards. Bijan did good. Ritter did good with yards. And then this week you okay, I want Pitts in the game, but then you take away the targets from Drake London. It just, they got to stay consistent. Like I thought it was going to be a 20s to 20s game.
Yeah.
And just like you said, I'm really surprised they only scored 6 points. And we came in talking about the Falcons defense, like being strong, because they were like top in rank. And then we were like, well, they haven't really played anybody.
Yep.
Well, that could have been the reason why Gibbs only had 80-something yards. But, we got to see, next week. But I thought Gibbs would have had more receiving chances. I thought Campbell said that he was going to give him more chances. And we haven't seen that yet,
Yeah.
And Goff had 19 fantasy points. Gibbs had 9. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's doing his thing, 22 fantasy points. And Sam Laporta, 22 fantasy points. For a tight end, that's a big, big win.
Yep. You'll take
big
that.
Win.
Take that every day.
And then Desmond Ritter, 7 points, nothing. And Bijan Robinson, that was a big letdown for $9,000 for $9,000 last week for a DFS. That's a big egg. 10 fantasy points. That's bad. And then Drake London 5 fantasy points, and Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith had exactly 8.7 fantasy points.
Yeah. Yep. So, both teams are 2-1 now and heading into week 4. Next game on the slate, Saints and Packers. This game turned out to be a little more entertaining because it was close, 17-18. The Packers edged them out. Some of the things that came to me from this game was Jordan Love, man. I think he's the real deal. After 3 games, he seems to be poised. He's consistent. I think Love is the real deal. He had a horrendous start to this game. It didn't look like he was going to do anything with fantasy. It didn't look like he was going to do anything in the game. But when crunch time came, he started to really do better. He ends up 22 of 44, so only 50%. 259 yards, a touchdown on INT. But when they needed him to make plays the most, he made plays. And he did a little running. He had 9 carries for 39 yards, a 29-yard scamper, a 24-yard scamper. I mean, he got loose one time. So he was a thing. A.J. Dillon once again led the backfield when Aaron Jones is not there. 11 carries, 33 yards, not going to get it. That ain't going to get it. They need Jones back quickly. And then the receiving core, looks like Musgrave had the most catches. They're tied in, 6 for 49 on 8 targets. But Dobbs had the most targets. Romeo had 5 receptions on 12 targets, 73 yards, and a touchdown. On the other side, Olave, 104 yards on 8 receptions. Michael Thomas, 50 yards on 6 receptions, 11 targets and 9 targets. but neither one of them found the end zone. Jimmy Graham, they go get Jimmy Graham. They signed him in the offseason, and he's happy to be back with the team he started with and all that rah rah. He got the touchdown. He got the touchdown. In that game, though, Derek Carr went out hurt. He got injured. And so, that Jameson Williams comes in. Jameson Winston, my bad. Thinking of the Lions. Jameis Winston comes in. So we'll see how long Carr will be out. But a report a few hours ago came out and said Dennis Allen said Monday that Carr, his shoulder, has a sprained AC joint and is considered week to week. When you're week to week, that means he probably his start next week is in jeopardy, for week 4.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have, Winston, man. Winston knows what he's doing. It's not like they got some rookie back there. Winston came in with 101 yards on 10 of 16, 101 yards. Carr, when he left, was 13 of 18 for 103 yards. So not a big difference there. And then the other story, and then I'll get off this game and give it to you. Kendre Miller, 9 carries, 34 yards. A lot of hype about this kid. We all want to see. It's what it is. The Packers defense is okay. So nothing special there. Tony Jones, 8 for 31. They are getting Kamara back for week 4. And if he's in good shape and all that, he's definitely going to add to that offense. What was your take on it?
Yeah, nothing really too big to talk about, It was one of those games that was slow, Jordan Love started slow and Carr didn't really go off too much till, then he got hurt. But nothing really big scoring on this game for fantasy-wise. Chris Olave, he had 21 fantasy points. But Kendre Miller, I thought maybe a little more. They didn't really get him in the passing game than I thought they would. Tony Jones, he got those. But now that Kamara's coming back, we'll see what they do with the young kid. But Michael Thomas, he got 11 fantasy points. Jimmy Graham, 1 catch, 1 target, touchdown. He got 7 fantasy points. Green Bay, I like Green Bay. With Christian Watson coming back, they're going to have Dobbs, Reed, and Watson, and they're giving the tight end, that kid Musgrave, they're giving him a lot of targets too. So it's looking good for Green Bay. They got a good young offense, and when Aaron Jones is back, that's going to be something too. So Jordan Love had 25 fantasy points. Romeo Dobbs had 18 fantasy points, and Luke Musgrave had 10. And running backs, nobody had more than 5. So it was a slow day for the running backs on Green Bay side.
Yeah, it seemed to be a slow day for running backs across the league, except for unless you're in the Miami Dolphins uniform. And that takes us to that game. Russell Wilson, you had the Broncos and the Dolphins. Now, I don't want to spend all day on this game. And matter of fact, I'm over this game already. This game broke fantasy football. Every year you have 1 week that it's a broken, slate because someone's going to go off. And this one was the Dolphins. 20-70 is ridiculous. Sean Payton, shame on you. I mean, really, you couldn't bring your team ready to play. You had to let them score 70 points. That's unheard of. Russell Wilson, 23 for 38, 306 yards. That's not bad. A touchdown and an INT. Those aren't bad. That's not a bad line. Javonte Williams, only 11 carries, 42 yards. And then Jaleel McLaughlin, he had 5 carries for 15 yards. And Samanje Piron's not getting much, 3 carries for 9 yards. They really had him as the backup, or the guy to do a little timeshare with Jamal. But it looks like Javonte. It looks like Javonte's really their guy. And so as he gets more healthy, I think he's going to get better throughout the year. But 11 carries isn't much. And I guess when you're down by freaking 40, you're just going to be passing anyway. You're going to throw up 38 times, Cortland Sutton led the receiving corps. He had 8 receptions for 98 yards. Judy, 5 receptions, 81 yards. Marvin Mims, this time had 3 receptions, but once again, bro, 73 yards, 24.3 yards per catch. Marvin Mims, they only use him deep, I guess. I mean, for real, this guy, he's one of those guys that you could spot start in DFS and be okay. If he starts getting volume, he can be a real big pickup on the waiver wire if he's still out there for year-long leagues. Tua, let's get to the Dolphin side. Tua, his numbers were kind of like Wilson's. He was only 23 for 26. He only threw the ball 20. If you would have told me that the Dolphins are going to score 70 points without Waddle, I would have thought, Tyreek would have like 18 targets and Tua would have thrown over 40 times. Tua only threw the ball 26 times, bro, for 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's just stupid, crazy, efficient stats. Devon A-Chain, 18 carries. He led the backfield, 18 carries, 203 yards, bro. For this rookie, he finally gets healthy. He finally gets his first, game, and he goes for 203 yards, 11.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. He had a big 67-yard run. But Raheem Mostert, 13 carries, 82 yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. This guy had 4 touchdowns. He destroyed fantasy. If you had him, you're going to really compete. And we haven't even got to Tyreek, bro. Tyreek, 9 receptions, 157 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. And then there's, Robbie Chosen had 1 for 88 yards, for 68 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's what he's done throughout his career. Robbie Anderson, Robbie Chosen now. He changed his name. He's a big boom guy. He'll get a long touchdown, won't catch anything else but that. So I don't know. This game, kind of you have to throw it out the window if you're the Broncos. And if you're the Dolphins, you're feeling pretty good, but it's on to the next one. What was your take on it?
Yeah, this one's this one's like, oh, talk about this one. And you're right, like I'm looking at the stats right here, and it's 70 points you think Tua would have threw for 600 yards, and it was a rushing game, and it's just hard to talk about it. Really, it's just, I mean, you talk about Miami, Tua, 31 fantasy points. Devon
A-Chain.
Devon A-Chain, 54 fantasy points. Raheem Mostert, 45 fantasy points. Tyreek Hill, 33, and Robbie the Chosen One, 13. And tight ends didn't do really too well, but yeah, the Broncos got to. I mean, that is, you're on that team. That is what's going on.
Yeah,
that defense is supposed to be something, and that's just Russell 300 yards, but that's with a lot of garbage time, and he was still in for the fourth quarter. So Sutton had 21 fantasy points, and Marvin Mims Jr. had 16, and Jerry Jeudy. They're trying to get him targets, and he had 13. But that's pretty much for that game. There's nothing really to talk about.
Yeah, that game was an embarrassment. If you're a Broncos fan, you're embarrassed. This next game is pretty embarrassing too. Vikings, Chargers, both teams come in 0-2, season on the line. It's a lot easier to make the playoffs if you're 0-2, which it's still not easy, than it is 0-3 for the Vikings. And the Vikings are 0-3. So
that's that. You know what? I want to get in here real quick and say something. The Vikings aren't playing bad football on offense. They aren't playing bad football, you guys. So, whatever it is, they're not playing bad football. They're not.
No, they're not. Not at all. It's not the offense's fault, really. It's not the defense's fault. The defense isn't playing horrible either. I just don't understand. I feel like it's play calling. They had the ball inside the 5 a couple times and didn't get in the end zone. You just have to. Let's just get into the numbers here. Justin Herbert went crazy, 40 for 47, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. All of them were really big moments. Keenan Allen, 1 for 1 and a touchdown. He threw for a touchdown. Even I was calling that play out as I was watching. I'm like, he's got to throw the ball. I don't get it. Joshua Kelly, though, disappointing. Bro, me and you could have went out there and did that. I'm serious. He had 11 carries for 12 yards. I think if they gave me the rock 11 times, I can get a yard a carry or at least scamper one off for 6 yards before I'm, you know, but that's embarrassing, especially against a team that just gave up almost, over 200 something yards rushing on Thursday against the Eagles, 184 or whatever it was to Swift and then all the rest of the Eagles, over 200 yards rushing. So he only gets 12 yards. Keenan Allen, though, once again, man, they threw it to him 20 times, 18 receptions for 215 yards. This is the guy. Mike Williams got hurt. You said you just told me he tore his ACL. He's out for the year. 7 receptions. He still had 121 yards when he went out. They were really, really just beating the Vikings up through the air. And the Vikings had no answer for it. It kind of reminded me of last year. I was looking on the sideline, I'm like, is Ed Donatel still over here? Do they bring him back? Because, bro, that defense, I don't care. I don't care, man. If Flores is there or not, they didn't look good. They gave up way too many big plays. On the lighter note, Alexander Madison, 20 carries, 93 yards. He looked better than he did in the first 2 games. Justin Jefferson is just going out being Justin Jefferson. He's going out being JJ. 13 targets, 7 receptions, 149 yards. That's his lowest game of the year, 149. He's had at least 150 in each of the 2 previous games, but he did get in the end zone. And then you had TJ Hawkinson had 8 receptions, 78 yards. He's still doing his thing. But the Vikings got to figure something out. The rumor is now Gronk had come out before this game and said that if the Vikings lose, they're going to trade Kirk Cousins to the Jets, and they're going to tank and wait for Caleb. As a Viking fan, I'm saying, screw it. Let's do it. Let's just get Caleb in here, get some new blood. I like Kirk Cousins. It's not his fault that they're 0-3. I understand that. But something's got to change. And I don't know, man. Maybe it's O'Connell. Maybe he had a fluke year last year. I doubt that. I don't know what to put my finger on, but what was your take on it?
I just think it's not. I just think the ball's not falling their way right now. It's just because, like we said, there's not. I mean, they're playing good ball. I mean, if you really look at it, their offense is not bad. Flores, his. I mean, if he wants to be a head coach again, he better turn his defense around, because you ain't going to be a head coach with a team like this. I'm sorry.
Right.
You're not going to. There's no way. Nobody's going to be looking at you when you're. You can't stop anybody. So, it's just a tough. It's just. Try to figure out the Vikings right now. It's just rough because you look at their stats every week, their offensive stats every week. Kirk Cousins is scoring over 25 fantasy points every week. JJ every week. It's just, they're one of those teams that they could just all of a sudden turn it around, because they're not playing bad football at all. And it's like the Chargers. Chargers could have won the last 3 games too, the last 2 games also. So, both those teams are in the same boat, And so Kirk Cousins scored 29 fantasy points. Alexander Madison scored 17. JJ Jefferson, 30 fantasy points. That guy's just rolling. He's rolling, man. And then TJ Hawkinson, 14 fantasy points. And you couldn't go wrong with Justin Herbert. He had 32 fantasy points. The running backs, we don't want to talk about that. They had 3 running backs that had touches and they don't even equal to 5 points. So I'm not even going to go there. And Keenan Allen, 48 fantasy points. Man, he won somebody some money. And Mike Williams, 28 before he went down. Joshua Palmer had 15. And Donald Parham had 14 fantasy points.
Yeah, the tight end. Yep. So, yeah, you're right, man, on all that, on all those fronts. The Vikings are losing 1 possession games. They're losing 1 score games. Last year, they had won 11 of them. They were 11-0 in 1 score games. This year, they're 0-3 in 1 score games. Everything is tight. They're right there within their grasp, but they just are not figuring out a way to win. Maybe the ship will turn, but maybe they'll tank for Caleb too. I'm okay with that too. I'm all right having a future quarterback. Or they can go, hey, man, it's okay. They can go get Shador. I'll take Shador Sanders even. They could probably pick him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the Vikings are in trouble. They're going to have to figure this out, because one thing with prima donna wide receivers, and I'm not saying Jefferson is, but he's going to start squeaking. If they keep on losing like this and they don't, wide receivers are finicky, bro. You saw Diggs, he left. He was like, "Get me out of here." I don't know. We'll have to
Mhm.
see. Next on the slate is the Jets and the Patriots. This kind of went the way we thought it was, a ugly, sloppy, no frills defensive kind of game. 15-10. 15 really? When's the last time you saw someone score 15 in a NFL game? 15-10. The Jets lose to the Patriots. The Jets are 1-2. The Patriots are 1-2. And so Mac Jones, 201 yards passing. Ezekiel Elliott led the yards for the Patriots with 80 yards, 16 touches. Ramondre, 19 touches, only 59 yards. They are playing against a real tough defense, so the Jets defense is tough. So yeah, and Farrell Brown, 71 yards on 2 receptions. Once again, who the hell's Farrell Brown? I mean, I know who Farrell Brown is, but who the hell's Farrell Brown? I mean, once again, it's who's who
Mhm.
of receivers from New England because Belichick is always trying to keep you off guard. Well, that's why you fade all their offensive players. You just fade them all. Unless their name is Brady or Gronkowski, you just fade them all. Or Edelman or Welker. I got it right. You just fade them all because no one cares. And then Hunter Henry is more like we thought. 2 receptions, 17 yards. Mike Gesicki, 1 reception, 18 yards. On the other side of the ball, Garrett Wilson, 5 receptions, 48 yards. He's still not going off. 9 targets though. Lazard, 3 for 39, and then Conklin, 3 for 26. Their running game, Brees Hall, he complained that he didn't get the rock. I got it 4 times. That's why we were in trouble against Dallas. That's why we didn't do good. Well, they gave it to him 12 times. He led the backfield. 18 yards. Brees, if you're going to talk trash like that, you better with 12 carries get more than 18 yards then. Because now you can't say nothing. The rest of it, you can't say nothing. They
Mhm.
gave you they tripled your count and you only
Mhm.
gave them 18 yards. Dalvin Cook had 8 carries for 18 yards. So it's just like, yeah, they're in trouble. Zach Wilson, 157 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, which to me stands out even more. If he's not turning the ball over, that's a good thing. But ugly game, kind of wet and rainy. It's kind of ugly. What was your take?
Yeah, that's the way that New England's been playing the last couple games. Ugly. Ugly games, and the Jets too. Like, you know what? Jets, Zach Wilson, when you guys have an easy game coming up or whenever, show me something. Because if you can't do nothing against a team that's not good at defense or anything, then Zach Wilson, you're done, man. I know New England's tough defense. We talked about it. We knew that Belichick's going to just focus on Brees Hall. We talked about it. Brees Hall, he could talk all that, but we knew Belichick's going to stop him. But it's like when they have an easy game coming up, whenever they do, you have to do something, man. You have to, because that shows you can play a little bit. But like if you're going to play like this every game, then this is, I mean, Kirk Cousins might be a Jet. Like really, Kirk Cousins might be a Jet. I mean, to be honest, because pretty much you're going to throw it away, and then it seems like their defense is kind of down. Also, like you lose the quarterback and your defense didn't look good. I mean, they didn't look. They weren't bad, but they didn't look too good. Like Mac Jones, I mean, come on, man, they could have did a lot better. I'm a little disappointed in the Jets defense. I am. I'm not going to lie. Like, Garrett Wilson, 9 fantasy points. Nick Baldwin, he's the highest scoring running back this week. He had 1 yard, 1 rush for a touchdown, 6 points. And, Zach Wilson, 6 points. Mac Jones and New England's offense, it's like you said all the time, Lonnie. You cannot trust a New England receiver. Tight end, receiver, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's so many different every week, and you can't trust. It's like the Chiefs offense right now. You don't. It's a flip of a coin. Okay, Tony or James or something. It's a flip of a coin. So Mac Jones, 13 fantasy points. Ezekiel Elliott had the most fantasy points this week, 16. Or I'm sorry, 9. And he had 80 yards. But Stevenson, 7 fantasy points, and Kendrick Moore led the team with 8 fantasy points. And Farrell Brown, yeah, I guess they got Farrell Brown as a tight end now, but he's 15 fantasy points. The Jets defense did not have 1 sack, 1 pick, 1 fumble recovery, Nothing. So that's what I'm saying. They're playing down to what's going on in the locker room.
You can't play down to your competition in the NFL. Teams you're supposed to beat, you're supposed to beat them. You're supposed to beat their butt and get on to the next week. So, yep, you're right. Get into our next game, the Bills and Commanders. I thought this was going to be a closer game. Commanders come in 2-0. The Bills were 1-1, and the Bills just destroyed them on the road. Just destroyed them. Just wasn't even close. They're picking balls off. Like, their defense. I'm not going to jump on your fantasy thunder but their defense had over 30 points yesterday. For the Bills, if you had the Bills in your fantasy card, it was going to get you real close to winning your weekend, because they really did. If you had them and a Dolphin, you probably won, or you won some kind of money. You're in the top something. But yeah, so in the numbers, Josh Allen didn't even look great, man. 20 of 32, 218 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He's not looking good this year. James Cook, 15 carries, 98 yards. Getting better, man. James Cook is starting to look like the real deal 3-down back. Allen was the next guy and carries, three carries for 46 yards, and then Latavius Murray had 5 carries, 15 yards. That's definitely James Cook's backfield now. He's the alpha, and they're going to use him like it. And that's good for him. And I think it's good for them in the long run, because he's very versatile. Stephon Diggs, once again, he is showing that he's an elite receiver. 8 receptions on 12 targets. Just the volume alone is what really puts him elite. And we know he can have big games. He only had 111 yards, no touchdowns, and then Gabe Davis only had 1 reception for 35 yards. And once again, it's Gabe Davis. 6 receptions one game, 1 reception another game. He's hard. If you have him in your year-long league, he drives you crazy, because he can really get you a lot of points, and then he can get you nothing too. At least he got in the end zone. He cashed, but 1 reception, 34 yards. So Dalton Kincaid was kind of a swing and a miss. I know we had him on a card this this weekend, and 2 receptions on 3 yards, 2 receptions for 3 yards. They're supposed to get this guy to stretch the field. Well, that ain't stretching the field. And on this day against that team, you'd think that they would have got him more involved. Dawson Knox, 1 reception, 11 yards. That just tells me they didn't use their tight ends at all, in that game. And their defense was a story in that game, because their offense really didn't look great. And on the other side of the ball, Curtis Samuel had 54 yards to lead with 2 receptions. McLaurin, 6 receptions, 41 yards. Where in the hell is Jahan Dotson? 2 receptions for 21 yards. Bro, we were both on him. You were on him a little bit more than me, but I was kind of on him. I thought he would have a better year than this, and he's starting off 3 weeks in, not looking too good. Brian Robinson, after having a monster week for him last week, 10 carries, 70 yards. Still 7 a carry. That's a good average. He didn't get in the end zone. He had a 23-yard run. Sam Howell had a carry for 18 yards. Antonio Gibson, 2 carries, 17 yards. Sam Howell, 19 for 29, 170 yards. Quite lackluster. He had 4 interceptions, bro. And some of them were just like he was scrambling and he's trying to throw over a linebacker, and the linebacker just jumps up and grabs it. There's a couple of them were like that. So he's learning as he goes. It's only second year, first year starter. So he's learning as he goes. They're still 2-1. Ugly game though, real ugly. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, there was there was 3 teams this week that came in 2-0, and they did not look like they were 2-0 teams at the end. Atlanta Falcons did not look like a 2-0 team. We haven't got to this game yet. Dallas Cowboys did not look like a 2-0 team, and the Washington Commanders did not look like a 2-0 team. And it's like, a Buffalo's defense took over that game, and it's like McDermott just threw the offensive playbook away. Said, you know what? We don't need to get cute on this game. We're just going to let defense take over, and we'll do what we can to win the game on the offense side, and that's it. That's what it looked like. It's like Josh Allen, like you said, Josh Allen did not have a great game. He had 22 fantasy points, but stats wise wasn't too crazy, like you said. He had a 46 rushing yards and a touchdown, but nothing crazy. James Cook, 13 fantasy points. Latavius Murray had 9. Stephon Diggs had a good game, 22 fantasy points. Gabe Davis, 10. And the tight ends, that was not good at all. I still like Brian Robinson. Even that they were behind that much, and you wouldn't think they run, but he had 10 carries for 70 yards. And that's 10. That's not bad. That's like 8 yards a carry.
Yeah, Brian Robinson's someone that you could target for a trade right now before he really starts getting a lot of fantasy points, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like he's someone that's still, we were really in on him last week. We didn't pick him, but if this game was closer, I think he would have had over 100 yards. I mean, you have 10
For
carries for
sure.
70 yards and you lose by 34 points. So I think that guy would have had a big game if Sam Howell didn't throw 4 picks.
Yeah, I agree.
So Terry McLaurin had 10 fantasy points, and that's pretty much it on that side of the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, quite uneventful. You know, Bills did what they're supposed to do. Their defense looked like it used to. So good for them. The next game, Houston and Jacksonville. I don't know, bro. I just don't know. Maybe Jacksonville and Peterson's bunch of smoke and mirrors. Maybe they're going to have another rah-rah moment like last year and start winning 7 in a row or whatever the hell they're going to have to do. But I expected a lot more from Jacksonville coming out of the gates this year. They're 1-2. They're 0-2 at home, and they're 1-2. And then you have the Texans, which are 1-2. But you just feel a little better about their 1-2 than the Jacksonville Jaguars 1-2. They came in here 0-2, and they come in on the road and they get a dub. C.J. Stroud, another big game from him. As a rookie, 20 of 30 for 280 yards. That's his least amount of attempts he's taken so far this year. He had averaged like 44, 46 yards. 45 attempts per game. He only had 30. 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I don't think this kid's thrown an interception yet this year. And that's huge, bro. This is a rookie, and he's looking good. Devin Singletary led the backfield, 9 carries, 41 yards. Dameon Pierce had 14 carries, more carries, less yards. But Dameon Pierce did find the end zone, which was good for Dameon Pierce owners. They really needed him to get in the end zone. Once again, Tank Dell, he does his thing, man. He only had 7 targets, but 5 receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown. Huge. Nico had a bad game, 2 receptions, 34 yards. I'm not worried about Nico. It's just one of those games, Sometimes they take you out, and when they do, you hope one of your boys like Tank Dell will pick up the slack, and he did in this particular game. And Robert Woods does what Robert Woods does. 3 receptions, 34 yards, possession guy. A crafty old vet, he's going to give you a good game. He's going to give you what you expect out of him. And then on the other side, man, Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 40, 27 of 40, 279 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Travis Etienne, 19 carries, 88 yards. So that's not bad. 4.6 yards a carry, no touchdowns. Lawrence ran the ball 3 times for 12 yards. Tank Bigsby, he got in 2 carries for 10 yards. Evan Ingram, 7 receptions, 67 yards. Christian Kirk, 4 for 54 and a touchdown. Etienne, 4 for 50. Jamal Agnew, 4 for 49. And then I get to Calvin Ridley. Oh, Calvin Ridley. Second, third round Calvin Ridley. 3 receptions, 40 yards, 7 targets. 7 targets and 3 receptions sounds like one of 2 things. Either they're doubling this guy, they're all over him, trying to take him away from being the threat, or him and Lawrence aren't quite on the same page just yet, and I think it's kind of a mixture of both, but I expect him to get this thing turned around pretty quickly. I'm kind of surprised that they only got 17 points. What was your take?
I'm surprised that Jaguars are 1-2. I had a lot of high hopes on Lawrence, and he didn't do bad. I mean, he didn't do too bad. He had what did you say? 270 or 280, 279, Etienne, he had 17 fantasy points. He had some yards on the receiving and rushing yards, but Etienne had 17 and Trevor Lawrence had 15. And Christian Kirk, the first game we were worried about Christian Kirk. Oh no. I mean, he's the last 2 games, he has 15 fantasy points. And Calvin Ridley had 7. I mean, they're trying to go to him. He's having targets. It's not like he's only getting 2-3 targets. Ingram's been really consistent on the tight end side. He had 13 fantasy points, so he's been really consistent with them. But now on the Texans side, I really like C.J. Stroud. I mean, he only threw the ball 30 times this week, but I mean, they won he didn't need to go, too crazy. And he had 20 fantasy points. That offense, once they get Dameon Pierce going, like once they get him going like he was last year, that's going to be a tough offense to stop. I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games or nothing like that, but for fantasy reasons, C.J. Stroud's going to be a quarterback. Last week he was 6,700. Watch this week. He's going to be in the sevens. He ain't going to be 6,700 this week. There's no way. There's no way. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked because, Dameon Pierce had 14 fantasy points. C.J. Stroud had 20. Tank Dell, 28 fantasy points. And he ain't going to be the cheapest receiver like he was this week. Watch his stock go up. Robert Woods, 6. And Nico Collins had a slow day, 5 points. But he's, he'll get there. And then Brevin Jordan had 9 fantasy points.
Yeah, I'm with you. A little disappointed. I thought the Jaguars would be a better team after 3 games. So it's whatever. We'll see. It's still early in the year. 1 and 2 ain't bad, but we'll see. Our next game, the Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks, 2 games that were, 2 teams that kind of were. Seattle was 1-1 coming in, and Panthers were 0-2. But yeah, it just turned out to be I don't know, 27-37 sounds like a real exciting game. Andy Dalton had to play because Bryce Young is out injured, and I'm not sure when he's coming back. We'll check that in a sec. But Dalton went 34 for 58, bro. He threw the ball. They had old Andy Dalton out there throwing the ball 58 times, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Average 6.2 yards per pass. Miles Sanders is a joke. I don't care what no one says. I hear all these YouTubers and analysts and Miles Sanders, no, he's never been good. What is it? Smoke and mirrors. I don't want smoke and mirrors. 9 carries for 24 yards. He's just not good. He's not a good running back. He's not an RB1. He never has been, never will be. He is what he is. 9 carries, 24 yards, 1 touchdown. And 24 yards on 9 carries. He had 1 carry for 15 yards, bro. So then the other 8 carries, he only got, 9 yards on 8 carries. So yeah, it's whatever, man. It's whatever on that. Thielen is starting to emerge as their guy. 11 receptions, 145 yards, a touchdown. Great fantasy day for Adam Thielen. DJ Chark, 4 receptions, 87 yards. Sanders did catch the ball in the backfield 5 times for 38 yards. Marshall Jr., 5 for 35. Mingo, 3 for 21. But the thing to me that stands out in this whole game on the Panther side is where the hell's Hayden Hurst? Oh, we're going to run. We're going to build our offense. This is what Frank Reich is saying. We're going to build our offense around through the tight end. In week 1, we were thinking, yeah, okay, cool. This is what they're doing. Then week 2, it went back, and now they're at 1, reception on 3 targets to the tight end. Yeah, that's not building or running your offense through the tight end. And why is Frank Reich even a head coach anyway? They just keep giving these coaches that have never done anything another chance and another chance, recycling. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous. On the other side, you have Geno Smith, 23 of 36, 296 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Kenneth Walker, 18 carries, 97 yards. He's still doing his thing. 2 touchdowns. This kid is a touchdown magnet. When they have the ball down close, he's getting the rock. He's getting in the end zone. Charbonnet had 9 carries, which I think is at his most so far this year, for 46 yards. He looked good, in that role. DK was questionable coming in, but he played. He had 7 receptions, 112 yards, looked good, no touchdowns.
Yeah.
Walker had 3 receptions, 59 yards. Noah Fanther tied in 4 for 41. They don't really use tight end much. Tyler Lockett, kind of a surprise to me, only 3 for 34, and Njiba 1 for 10. He had 1 reception for 10. I think a lot of people jumped on Njiba when they thought DK wasn't going to play, and then he played, and Njiba just 1 for 10. So game time decisions can be rough in DFS. But overall, I think Seattle did what they were supposed to do. What do you think about the game?
Yeah, with Seattle, that's what I thought, and I think that's what we all thought. We picked Seattle to win this game, and Gino, he had an all right game. 16 fantasy points, and Kenneth Walker, he's just been rolling with touchdowns. I think he's been, he had 2 this game, 2 last game, and he's just, 97 yards. He had 30 fantasy points, and like you said, down by the end zone, he's getting in. He's getting in, and DK Metcalf had 20 fantasy points. Lockett 8, and Smith. Smith-Jigma, I really thought he would have been a little more in the playbook. I really thought they would have used him a lot more. He only had 3 targets, and he's not meshing well with the receivers that they have right now. I thought he was going to be a lot different, and I think a lot of us did. I know a lot of guys drafted him this year on their redraft leagues, and he's shocking me a little bit. I thought he was going to be a lot better, honestly, because people were talking about him being rookie of the year. Okay, they were talking about him being rookie of the year on the NFC side, and they were, and he's not even close. He's not even. There hasn't been.
Yeah, well, I think he did have an injury. He broke his wrist, hairline fracture, but broke his wrist coming in, so that kind of slowed him up. And they really haven't used him very much. They haven't given him a lot of opportunities. But I guess time will still tell on that. But he doesn't, like you're right. He doesn't look like rookie of the year, right?
No, he doesn't look like what they say. I mean, they had him over Bajan, and they had him over Gibbs and everything. Like, there's a lot of articles out there saying that they thought he was the best receiver coming in, and he's not even top 10.
Yeah,
right now.
No, I agree.
For rookie receivers, not even top. So Andy Dalton, there's no reason Andy Dalton should give the ball back to Bryce Young. To be honest with you, I mean, he did nothing wrong that game, and if he does it again next week, it says Bryce Young, could be out 1 or 2 weeks. And I mean, there's nothing that Dalton did wrong to go back to the bench. I'm being honest. I know you use that kid for the first round, the first pick of the draft, and all that, and maybe to get him in. But if Andy Dalton stays this way, the way he's doing, he had 26 fantasy points. I don't see no reason why to give that kid the ball back to get hurt. He already got hurt, so maybe sit him down for a while and then get him, back in. But Miles Sanders, he's Miles Sanders. He's still wearing a Philadelphia's uniform somewhere, because sure don't look like he's playing for the Panthers.
No,
I mean, it's sad. I mean, that guy was strong, man. He used to just break tackles and go right through you, and it's not looking good for him. Give Chuba Hubbard the ball, man. Last year he did good. When they traded McCaffrey to one of the best teams in the league, I was like, he went off, man. He played good. Carolina almost made the playoffs when they traded McCaffrey because they had Chuba.
Yeah.
And Foreman, and they're not even giving him a chance. He had 1 rushing attempt. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Adam Thielen, 34 fantasy points. DJ Chark, 18. Jonathan Mingo went down with concussion. He's in protocol. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, Hayden Hurst was nowhere to be found.
Yeah. That's there's not much more to say about that. It would be nice. Like, Jordan Love is a great example. This is his 3rd year in the league. He sat behind Rodgers for 2 seasons, 2 full seasons. And now this is his 3rd year.
Yes, sir.
So, and he looks good. He looks poised. He looks like not everyone's going to run out there like CJ Stroud and just kind of get it quickly. Some you have to be a little more patient with. And I think maybe Bryce Young, if he could sit, they have Andy Dalton. They're not going to win. They're not going to the playoffs. Run Andy Dalton out there. Let this kid learn. And maybe next year he's ready and you have a really quarterback. So I agree with you on that. Give him some more time. He's not ready just yet. In that situation, he's not ready. He just isn't. The next game was a laugher, kind of embarrassing, along the lines of the Denver and Dolphins game. A little embarrassing. I mean, just it's the Bears and the Chiefs. Bears are 0-3. Chiefs are 2-1, 41-10. And Justin Fields 11 to 22, 99, 11 to 99 yards. And he ran a little bit more. He had 11 carries for 47 yards, and he had a long for 17. So they're letting him run a little bit more. But the Chiefs are no slouch. Their defense is better than people think. And they came to play. But Fields 99 for 11 for 22, 99 yards, touchdown, interception. He didn't get in the end zone running. Rushing, what is going on with this Bears team? Roshan Johnson, 8 carries. He led the backfield, 38 yards. Khalil Herbert, 7 for 31. You know what that tells me? I've seen Khalil Herbert run. I've seen Roshan Johnson run. Those guys both can run. They're both good running backs. Scheme, that tells me that this running scheme is trash. They can't figure out how to get a quarterback who's rushed for 1,000 yards last year. They can't figure out how to get him loose. They can't figure out how to get Herbert or Roshan Johnson loose at all. So I don't know. Chris had brought up Luke Getsky. Right now, I think Luke Getsky is an idiot, bro. I really do. Their offensive coordinator, I think he's an idiot. I think he should be fired. The Bears are an embarrassment to anything on the ground. They can't run. They have no offense. Luke Getsky should be fired. He should be fired today. Heads need to roll in Chicago. If I was a Chicago Bear fan, I'd be pissed right now. Pissed. My Vikings, I'm a Viking fan. So I say my Vikings are 0-3, and I'm pissed. But if I still feel like they could have won all those games. The Bears got their ass kicked in every single game they've been in this year and just have looked horrible. And they have a bunch of off the field stuff going on. This whole organization is in turmoil, and Getsky should be the first head to roll and then go from there. DJ Moore, he had 3 receptions, 41 yards. I'm not mad at DJ Moore. He made a hell of a catch, too, a one-handed catch down the sideline. He got in the end zone. Cole Kmet has looked okay, 2 for 22. Chase Claypool did get another catch. They used Roshan on the backfield, 2 for 11. On the other side, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Mahomes got hurt, which, we want to monitor what's going on with Patrick Mahomes because he left the game, kind of banged up. But as of right now, he doesn't have an injury designation to him. But, with him, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with Patrick Mahomes, man. You don't want him getting hurt. He went 24 for 33, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, kind of classic Mahomes numbers. Isaiah Pacheco, 15 for 62. Edwards-Helaire, 15 for 55. So here they go. Now they're starting to do a timeshare again with these two guys. Jerick McKenna, he caught a touchdown. Looked pretty good in that regard. Kelsey, 7 receptions, 69 yards, a touchdown. And Rashee Rice, once again, looks good. 5 receptions for 59 yards on 7 targets. Justin Watson, 2 for 51. Sky Moore, he had 4 receptions out of 6 targets, 42 yards. Not bad. They're starting to use him a little bit more. McKenna had 2 touchdowns in the air, 3 for 19 yards on 3 targets. So, it was what we thought it was. Kadarius Toney, 1 reception, 0 negative yards, -1. That guy's a joke. He's a joke.
Awful.
I mean, seriously,
Awful.
He's an overhyped joke. That's how I feel about Kadarius Toney. All this hype, and then nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that game wasn't a good game. Kansas City did what we thought they should do. They should just go beat the Bears, punch them in the mouth, send them home crying. And that's what they did. And the Bears are no closer to solving their issues. They run the ball more with Justin, and he still doesn't deliver, or they don't deliver. So, yeah. Your take?
Yeah, Taylor Swift looked better than Justin Fields yesterday, man. I don't want to be too disrespectful on this game, man. Because a good friend is a Bears fan, And it's like, we want him to explain this when he has a chance. But, I think every week we want to keep saying about the offense coordinator. Yeah, you're right. That dude needs to get fired tonight. There is nothing there. How can your offense be worse than it was last year when you get a whole new
Right.
coordinator? Like, there's nothing there, man. And I'm not on that whole, it's all on the Bears coaching staff either. I know it is, but I think it's a lot on Justin Fields too, man. I just don't think he has it. I don't think he has it. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to play. You're on the field. You have to make your own decisions, and
Yep.
99 passing yards. I mean, you're a quarterback, man. You're a quarterback. You're not a running back. Yeah, I mean, you are a quarterback.
Exactly.
And we are talking, and we're saying the same thing about Lamar right now with the new offensive coordinator also, But Lamar had 200
Mhm.
yards passing, and he had 100 yards rushing. So,
Yeah.
and Lamar makes his own decisions, and just Justin Fields, he's not looking. There's going to be some talk, every week. And if they lose again next week, yeah, there's going to be talk that he's not going to be there next year. And
Hey,
there
bro,
already is.
I don't want them tanking.
No, I
No,
know.
they better not be tanking for Caleb. The Vikings need to get Caleb.
Well, they're fighting for that for sure. They're fighting for that for sure.
The North is at battle again,
Yeah,
right? Just to
yeah.
see who can lose the most. What's going to happen when they play each other?
Well, Chicago has Carolina's pick too. So Chicago
Yeah,
has
that's true.
Carolina's
That's
pick,
true.
and Chicago. So I mean, Chicago be 1-2,
Yeah.
with the Cardinals, and Vikings are going to get out of it. The Vikings are going to win more than 6 games. They are. They're not going to lose.
They are.
They're not. Yeah,
Unfortunately, I agree
you
with you.
know.
They will. They will. They may even sneak into
Yeah,
the
I mean, you
playoffs. You
never know.
never
We'll
know
know.
at
Yeah,
0
next
3.
week we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
now next week if they're 0-4, then we really got to think about that. But I don't see that. Their team's way too good to do like that. So Mahomes had
Yeah.
25 fantasy points. Jerick McKinnon had 17. Isaiah Pacheco had 15. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 12. So the running backs, so they had I mean, they were up 40 points.
Yeah.
So, they're going to run
Yeah.
everybody. But Rashee Rice, 10. Sky Moore, 8 fantasy points. Justin Watson, 7. Travis Kelce, 19 fantasy points. Justin Fields, 11. And you know what? I like Roshan Johnson. Give
I do
him the
too, man.
rock. Put Herbert down on the bench and don't even play him. I'm honestly, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Play Roshan. Just play Roshan.
Yeah.
He's the
I
starter.
agree.
Here you go, Roshan. You're the starter, and Herbert, you'll get 2-3 carries a game because it ain't working what you're doing. It ain't working. Like every week you're trying to split them, and Roshan's been the one that had most yards every week. So just let him run the ball, man. Give him 20 carries. Take away those 7 carries from Herbert, and then he has what 15 carries, and see what he could do with 15 carries.
Exactly. I
And
agree.
DJ
100%.
Moore had 13 fantasy points. Yeah, I'm done with this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Dallas and Arizona. Okay, we said last week that the Cardinals, if they're trying to tank, they're doing it good because they don't look like they're trying to tank. If they're trying to tank for Caleb, they don't look like it, and they certainly did not look like it this weekend. You have them 28-16. They beat the undefeated. It's funny because when they announced the Cowboys on the TV, the first ranked Dallas Cowboys, NFL's top ranked team, is coming into the Valley, and who? Okay, first of all, who says they're the top ranked team? 2-0. I mean, because they haven't
No, that
played anyone.
changed.
Who did
That
they play?
changed all of a sudden. It was the Niners the whole time. And when the Niners beat the Giants, they were ranked 1. And then all of a sudden Sunday morning they say Dallas was. And
Yeah,
then
right.
and then now what?
Yeah,
We
they
talked
ain't
all
won
that
no
crap
one
about the
again.
Giants getting smoked against Dallas that first game, being embarrassed. Dallas, you should be embarrassed. Dak Prescott, you need to be embarrassed. Because, dude, really?
Exactly. Dak 25 for 40, 249 yards, a touchdown, interception. Pollard, he did his thing, 23 carries, 122 yards. He didn't get in the end zone, but over 100 yards, 23 carries. To me, that's still the formula. Get you a bell cow, run them out there. Have a couple guys underneath them that can, pick up a few carries here or there. Get you a bell cow, man. That's perfect what they're doing with Pollard here. Michael Gallup, though, he's leading your receiver core. I mean, when's the last time we mentioned? We haven't mentioned him all season. And I know it's only 3 games in. And I have nothing against Gal, but I'm surprised. 6 receptions, 92 yards. They shut CD Lamb 4 for 53. And then Jake Ferguson, their tight end, 5 for 48. He's becoming a tight end that you can almost rely on to get you some catches. And when they're down, coming into the weekend, he had more red zone targets than anyone in the league, Jake Ferguson, coming into the weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's a kind of sneaky guy. If you just grab him, you may have a winner there at tight end from the Cowboys. But to me, the Cowboys just looked like they were just being lazy and just came in with this swag and arrogance that they're just going to walk through this team. This is the NFL, and these are still grown men on the other side, and they made it to this league for a reason. Josh Dobbs once again looked good to me. His numbers aren't jumping out flashy, but 17 to 21, 189 yards with the touchdown, no interceptions. That's huge. He carried 6 times for 55 yards. He seems to have an instinct for when to run. And, he makes big plays with his legs. He had a 44-yard long run in yesterday's game. James Conner still looking good, man. Uh, you know, I think this is going to happen with Connor early on. He's going to have good games. As the season progresses, he'll probably digress a little bit. I wouldn't go trading for James Conner right now unless I was trying to trade for him to flip him in like 3 weeks or something like that. But hey, for now, Connor's looking good. 14 for 98, a touchdown. Can't get mad at that. Michael Wilson had 2 receptions, 86 yards. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know who Michael Wilson is. I'm not, I'm not lying. Rookie. Is he a rookie or what?
He's from Stanford. Yeah, rookie from Stanford. He got hurt with Stanford, but he was a good. They said if he would have came this year healthy, he would have been a probably top 5 rookie receiver.
Well, 2 receptions, 86 yards. Marquise Brown, 5 receptions, 61 yards, got in the end zone. Connor, 2 for 18. And then, Rondell Moore, 4 for 8, which isn't much. But I think he had a big play. Rondell Moore did have a big play. He had a carry for 50, is a 45-yard touchdown run. And it looked pretty good. But Zach Ertz 2 for 6. This was his least amount of usage so far this year, and Trey McBride 1 for 2. Not much from this game other than I think the Cowboys came in underestimating these Cardinals, and the Cardinals punched them in the mouth and said, "Get out of our stadium, take this L back to Dallas with you.
Mm-hmm.
You came in talking a lot of junk. Go." To me that's what happened. What was your take?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they underestimated him. It's not. I mean, you look at the stats, and it's not like the Cardinals just came in and then just scored a bunch of points and just went all over their defense. They just they did what they had to do to beat them. They had a big play here, they had a big play here. It wasn't like they were just running down their throat, or nothing like that, or passing down their throat. But they would make. It's like I watched that game, and there was a couple series that they couldn't do nothing, and there was a series that made a big play. And then like 2 series later, they make a big play, and Dallas couldn't do nothing on offense, and that was a Dak Prescott game, like always, Like cannot make a big play. Like you cannot make a play for your team that needs it. And it's like he never has been that way. Like he cannot make that big play. It's like he just has to throw that little drop off to Pollard, and Pollard gets smoked, or trying to find CD, throwing over CD's head 5 times. So he cannot make a big play. Like it's just like crazy, and it kind of worries me for next week. The Niners play the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are coming in hot now. They just beat Dallas, and every game, and every game that's Cardinals been playing, they haven't looked too bad.
That's true. That is
The
true.
Giants, they came back and beat them. It was the first half. Cardinals won that first half against the Giants. So, I mean, you could tell the Cardinals could easily get beat by a lot. Like you could easily see that a team will just blow out the Cardinals because they have a lot of holes, but they just do enough to win, man. I mean, Dobbs only had 189 passing yards, and I mean that's not that much to win 28-16. And Dallas just couldn't do anything, nothing. And I'm glad they lost. And I don't want to talk too much stuff because then Karma will get me next week about the Niners against Cardinals. But it was bad, like that. It was bad. You're right. They came in like the big, oh, big dog. We're ranked 1 and this and that. And Diggs is hurt, but that's not going to do nothing. And Micah Parsons talking like I could do this and I could play safety if I have to or cornerback. Dude, Micah Parsons, you got ran over, homie. You look like crap yesterday, bro. You did not look good, Micah. You did not. Like, stop opening your mouth, Dallas. Like, you guys don't look nothing. Like, you want to say number rank? Your offense ain't nothing. You guys haven't done nothing. CD Lamb, yeah. But what about everybody else? Hey, bring Rush in. Put the Rush sign out, because I tell you what, if Dallas looks like that again next week, the Dak Prescott talk goes all over again, just like last year. Is he the one? Now, Trey Lance is the third string, Yeah, they're already talking about Trey Lance. They were talking about it this morning, like all the guys were talking this morning, So Joshua Dobbs, 17 fantasy points. James Conner, 19. Marquise Brown, 17. Rondell Moore, 16. Michael Wilson, 10. Tight ends, they didn't really do too well. Dak Prescott, 15 fantasy points. Tony Pollard, he was the best player on the field, I think, with 18 fantasy points. Rico Dowdle, he got 13, and Michael Gallup had 15, and CeeDee Lamb 10, and Jake Ferguson had 9. And I like Jake Ferguson a lot.
Well, let's wrap up the Sunday slate with the Steelers and Raiders. It was a Sunday night game. Pickett, 16 for 28, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, played good enough to win. He's getting better and better every week. He's cutting out the mistakes, and that's what you want. Their running game still looks horrible. They can't run the ball. Najee does not look good. 19 for 65. He does not look good. And Jaylen Warren isn't the answer either. I mean, everyone's saying Jaylen Warren. I don't think Jaylen Warren is that great either. I don't think either one of these guys are going to win you a league or do much for you. They might have a game here or there, but, I wouldn't count on any running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 75 yards. He's showing us that he's a big play guy. He can get big yards on small receptions. If his targets double or increase, he can be a handful. So his time is coming. And then you have, Calvin Austin. He had 2 receptions, 72 yards, a big 72-yard, long catch, I guess. Yeah, for the touchdown. I guess the other reception he had was 0 yards, because of the, and then Freiermuth, 4 targets only, 3 receptions, 41 yards. He got in the end zone. Still good, tight end. I mean, if that's all you have, you got to run him out there. Allen Robinson, 4 for 24, did what he's supposed to do. And, that was about it on the Pittsburgh Steelers side. On the other side, Garoppolo got hurt. He's in concussion protocol. So we won't know exactly what his status is for next week until we get later into the week. Josh Jacobs is not looking good. I don't know if it was all the contract stuff and all the, business is getting in the way of production in the NFL this year. It really is. These guys are holding out on their last year of their contracts. I mean, they signed these contracts, and then the last year before they're able to get that final year, they're holding out because they want an extension. It's a thing that the agents, and I get it, if they get hurt, and I understand, but you signed the damn contract, play the contract out, and then see what happens after that. And if you're good, you're not going to have to worry about it, because either that team's going to pay you, or you're going to become a free agent and you're going to get a Brinks load of money from another team. So all this, it's just getting 17 carries, 62 yards. Josh Jacobs looks like Josh Jacobs of two years ago or whatever. He doesn't look like last year's Josh Jacobs. I don't know. Now I'm wondering, was that a fluke last year? I don't know. So we'll see, I guess. And then Devontae is still Devontae. 13 receptions, 20 targets, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's still Devontae. Alpha, top 5 receiver, fantasy and just receiver. And then Jacoby Myers looked good again, 7 for 85 on 12 targets. He's really emerging as a bona fide number 2 receiver for fantasy and just in football. Hunter Renfrow's kind of been forgotten. 2 receptions on 2 targets, 17 yards. I think they need to use Hunter Renfrow a little bit more, man, to open some things up. It may open up the running game even more. But very entertaining game, competitive. Raiders, Steelers, always a battle. The Raiders are 1-2. Steelers are 2-1. I'm surprised the Steelers are 2-1, but they are, and they won their last 2 games, and they're winning ugly. But sometimes that's what the Steelers do. They'll win ugly, and then before you know it, they're like, they got 10 wins, really? You know what I'm saying? So Tomlin's got those boys going. What was your take on the game?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that the Raiders lost this game. I watched the game. Pittsburgh don't look good to me, man. I mean, we could say they're 2-1, just like you said. I can't believe they're 2-1, and I can't either. I mean, I'm being honest. Like the Raiders should have won that game. Like you watch that game, it's like a lot of missed plays. Like I'm looking at this right now, and it shows Jimmy Garoppolo. He got 23 fantasy points, and they have the fire sign next to Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Fire sign. The guy threw 3 picks. I mean, the fire sign. I seen an article this morning. Some Raider guy, and fans are saying, sorry, Niner fans, for all the stuff we talked about you guys and Jimmy G for the last 3 years, because now we're seeing it.
Right.
Like, honestly, the Raiders should have won that game. Like, I watched that game. The Raiders should have won that game. Pittsburgh they just get lucky on stuff, man. The ball's falling. It's just going their way right now. And I hate to talk about this guy because he was, about or a hometown boy, but Najee looks like a fullback out there, man. Slow. He can't get around nobody. I mean, he's not breaking tackles like he used to. I don't know what's up with it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I really, feel bad saying that stuff, but he doesn't look fast or nothing. Like, there's no speed behind him right now. And
I agree.
And I think just Pittsburgh just barely, like, I don't know, like a better team than the Raiders. They're going to beat Pittsburgh. Like Cleveland had that game and Chubb went out. Like we all talked about Chubb was going to run for 200 yards, Lonnie, right? Last week.
Yeah, he was.
Like we all agree. Like
Yep.
Cleveland was going to win that game. And so Pittsburgh should be 0-3 right now in my eyes, like straight up. I know I have a lot of friends that are Pittsburgh fans and they probably hate me for this, but that's my thought of them right now. They don't look good to me at all. At all. Nobody in that division, nobody in that black and blue division, everybody says nobody looks good other than Cleveland. I think they look the best team right now.
Yeah, they do. They do. And they lost their number 1 player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll get through it. Kenny Pickett, 18 points. Jalen Warren, 8. Najee Harris, 6. Calvin Austin, had 1 big play, 15. And George Pickens, I agree. They need to give him targets like they give Devontae and everybody else. Give him more than 10 targets. Tyreek Hill's getting 15. Devontae Adams getting 20. Get Pickens more than 10, man. I mean, come on. Because that guy, 4 for 75 yards, he had 11. And then Fairmouth had a touchdown, so he had 13 fantasy points. Garoppolo, 24 fantasy points or 23 fantasy points, and it's I've seen that. I don't know. I don't understand it. And Josh Jacobs, 11. And that's the thing, you're talking about the running backs contracts and all that. Well, that's the thing. Running backs are so inconsistent right now, year by year. Teams don't want to pay him big money, man. Because look, last year he played as a $150 million running back.
Yeah.
The year before he didn't,
Mhm.
and this year he's not.
Right.
It's like Jonathan Taylor. I bet you he's kicking himself right now that he didn't play. Look at the Colts are 2-1.
Exactly.
And now they could go, hey, you know what? We got Zach Moss, bud.
Right.
Okay, we'll trade you to the we'll trade you to the worst team in the league.
That's true.
If I was him, I'd trade him to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Trade him to the Bears. Hey, I'll trade you to the Bears. Go ahead. Okay, we'll trade you to the Bears. The Bears got an extra first-round pick. They got Carolina's first-round pick. We'll take Carolina's first-round pick for you. Go to the Bears.
Right.
Because if I was them right now, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he calls and says, okay, I'll play for you on week 5, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're good.
I'd still take Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, but just like,
especially since he's on my fantasy team sitting on my bench.
Yeah. Well, last year he didn't play as good as he did the year before.
No,
either. So that's the thing, man. Nobody wants to pay these guys because they're inconsistent. The only one that's been consistent is McCaffrey. Chubb's been consistent. Those guys. Barkley, huh?
McCaffrey's been consistent when he's healthy.
Yeah, when he's healthy. But it's all about injuries.
I think that's all part of the owner's reasons too, because these guys do get injured a little bit more because they take more damage, and that's why a lot of these teams I think are going to committee. But I still say find you a bell cow, run them out there.
Well, yeah, you see Chubb just, he's out. So if he had guaranteed 100-something million, then that would be bad, right? And then Devontae Adams, 45 fantasy points. Jacoby Myers, he's a target killer right now. Jacoby Myers, 12. I think the Raiders need to get their tight end going, and I think that's what will get their rushing going too, because Waller's out. But Meyer only had one target. So it's not Meyer's fault. It's just the play calling. So yeah, that's it for that game.
So that's going to wrap up all the Sunday games. Hopefully you got something out of it. It looks like the NFL is really unpredictable through the first 3 weeks, but it should get better as we get more games under our belt. I'm Lonnie. He is Jake. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.